This morning, New York is going to begin enforcing a new law that regulates Airbnb rentals in New York. It happens today, and some say it could amount to an effective ban on short-term rentals.
Airbnb is a $100 billion market, and what has become a great idea to make great passive income and huge fortunes to people, and also a great alternative to the normal hotel chains, is now imploding? Yes. We've heard a lot in the news this last few years about short-term rentals and the amount of money people are making, but we're going to have to dive in deeper and expose the risks of short-term rentals and the lies that you may have been told, so you can decide if you really want to dive into the short-term rental business altogether. Airbnb is an online marketplace that connects people who want to rent out their property, typically for short stays. Guests would even find that typically they would be cheaper than hotels. But is this really the case? Well, for years, people were renting spare rooms out for extra income, and eventually they'd buy properties strictly to just invest in short-term rentals. This became big business, and then the huge investors came in and changed the game altogether by buying massive pools of homes to make into short-term rentals. So now let's look at this so-called passive income. Nowadays, not so sure if that's the case. I mean, when you opt for doing short-term rentals, you got to remember that you're basically signing up for a hospitality business. I mean, you're in charge of changing or cleaning fees, repair fees, and occasionally you'll have to deal with those late night complaints from guests as well. Now, if you're interested in long-term rentals instead, yes, you would still have a few of those things I just mentioned, but I can 100% assure you the wear and tear of shuffling people in and out daily or weekly will definitely cause more upkeep on that property than any long-term rental. So basically, you may get passive income, but most of all, it may turn into a full-time job if you opt to manage that short-term rental all by yourself. So, are short-term rentals a true high-profit machine, as we're all hearing as well? Well, the answer is yes, but let's really dive into this and see if it really is worth it. Sure, during those winter months at, say, a ski resort, that will lead to many more bookings in a low vacancy. But have you thought about those summer months when things really slow down? The occupancy in short-term rentals is very, very unpredictable. You may bring in all that money, but then you average out over a 12-month period, and a long-term play may definitely be the better call. This obviously, though, comes down to what type of return on investment or ROI is a good percentage for you. And factoring in things like your closing fees, all the maintenance costs, all that money that you may have to put down if you're financing the property, that will play a factor into your profits, obviously. And as a licensed agent, I'm asked all the time about the potential of short-term rentals, and usually after we break down all the numbers, most people opt anymore for doing the long-term rental play instead. That occupancy prediction of short-term rentals is very hard to figure out when looking at profitability, as unlike long-term rental properties, you have to rely on the current bookings and hope, and at least some of the locations for sure, that weather cooperates with you so you can get those bookings. Now, here's one of the hardest things to predict with a short-term rental, and that's what are they going to do to regulate these short-term rentals at any time? Yes, if you buy a short-term rental, you must always, I stress, have your guard up for what changes could happen that's out of your control that will either limit the amount of profits you can make or even altogether take it completely away. And all of this could cause that property to lose its value even in the markets that we're in today. And we all got to remember, whenever there's money being made, that government's going to find a way to regulate it. Trust me. Let's look at states like New York implementing a ban to short-term rentals by not allowing rentals for less than 30 days. And now let's look at California. They have allowed cities and counties to levy a called transient occupancy tax on accommodations rented out for 30 days or less, and many areas are implementing that right now. Even some of the vacation rental sites such as Airbnb and VRBO are actually collecting that tax at the time of the booking. And under this law, short-term rental licenses are needed and only one is allowed per owner, and you cannot set anything up under an LLC or corporation. Also, that owner of that property must notify neighbors when they are renewing the license. And on top of that, the owner must resolve any complaints within a 30-minute time frame in the evenings and 60 minutes during the day. That's just crazy, isn't it? Now in Colorado, we actually purchased a condo in Breckenridge right on Main Street to fix up and to do strictly a short-term rental. And while we were in the process of the rehab, Breckenridge, of all things, went and passed an ordinance that they would only allow up to 2,500 short-term rental licenses in the whole area. Now just imagine our reaction to this. This had everyone scurrying to get a license application during that time, and actually the properties took a dip and actual days on market all ticked up when this ordinance was passed. We actually went and sold that property so we just wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. Now I tell my clients that if they're interested in short-term rentals, they need to go into this expecting that regulations could happen, and also do not count on this being your main source of revenue. I go on to tell them that they need to look at other factors with that property, such as, is it a long-term appreciation play? Maybe a long-term rental play is best, but if they are relying on its purpose for short-term rental only, then I try to tell them they better just not do it at all. The short-term rental market is so saturated right now. Everywhere you look, there are short-term rentals available. This will also keep your profitability down, as basically it's a race to the bottom to get these properties rented. In my opinion, it's a much better option to buy a long-term rental, unless of course you're in that niche area, that one-off property that everyone is going to want to stay at. Now I really get it, how you'd want to jump into the opportunities that the short-term rentals present. I mean, the money's good for sure, and as long as you're smart, you consider everything that we just discussed. And again, with these continual regulations, and that you're not relying on it as your main source of income, then it might be the right investment for you. Please post your comments down below if you own short-term rentals and you've had any of these issues affect you, as I'd love to hear that. And also, please like and subscribe. Helps me grow my channel. And anytime you want to connect, my link's down below. I'd love to talk to you more about this, or any potential deals you might have, or if you need a real estate agent referral in any state, I'd be more than happy to help you out with that as well.